So how do you feel about Zelenskyy?
How do I feel about him?
How do you feel about him?
I'm not in love with him.
Do you like him?
I never met him, so do I like him? What I can say, I hate Putin. That's what I can say. I'm sure about my feelings towards Putin. That explains a little bit what I think about Zelenskyy in a way. Putin is an ex-KGB agent responsible for many bad things in the world. Zelenskyy is not my favorite. He's not my kind of guy. But he's doing good for Ukraine, I think, in this situation. He's doing good for Ukraine at the moment. I never met him. I never had any... We did not work together. I visited Ukraine after the Russian attack because of my PhD, so I had to see mass graves myself. I took some documentation from the prosecutor office because I needed it for PhD, but I never worked with him. I do have my doubts.
Do you trust him?
Trust is a big word. Well, you have to remember that Poland and US is a different story. I want to be straight. I do not know the guy. I know that there is a huge problem with corruption in Ukraine. There's a huge problem with corruption, even during the war. And that's really pisses me off because the whole world is trying to help Ukraine. And they still have a huge problem with the corruption, and this makes me angry because you see, I come from very Eastern Poland, and when the war started, millions of refugees, genuine refugees, came to Poland because we are a neighboring country. Over 17 million people went through Poland. And my mom was one of those who just prepared some food, sandwiches, and went there to help people, these children. And she was crying and calling me that, so many poor, genuine people in need are in Poland. They have no place to sleep and this and that. So that was heartbreaking. But on the other side, as every one of us can hear, and that's the news from Ukraine itself about another cases of people arrested for corruption. It's a big money. So there is a kind of, when you ask me if I like him, I feel frustrated when I see people like my mom helping Ukrainians who are in general need, poor people, and then I hear about the corruption. So many years and he didn't do much about it. In Poland, during the war, if you would be caught for the corruption, you would be killed on the spot. This is war, and that pisses me off. I don't like it, but I don't want to judge him. We'll see what's going to happen after the war. I think war will end soon, or it will be war like in Syria, taking like 12 years. It's going to, bleed a little bit, and we'll see what's, we had this peace talks now in Egypt, so we'll see what's going to happen. But
when you hear these stories, people message me, and I got friends from all over the world. So the fact that I'm Armenian, I know Russians, I know guys from Baku, Azerbaijan, Yerevan, and they'll go and, hey, some of these guys are connected to people in high places. Some of them are connected to guys in low places. Yeah. And sometimes the people in low places know a lot of things that's going on. Mm-hmm. And they'll say it's an open fact that they're taking money. Generals are getting money when that $200 billion that's coming through that Zelensky's taking off the top. Is that a known fact to people that are closer to the situation like yourself in Poland?
Oh, yes. I went to Ukraine.
So you know that Zelensky's making money off this $200 billion.
Well, that's what we've heard. We don't know what's the gossip, what's the fact. But I'll tell you this story because I went to Ukraine because they asked us to help them with the self-government reform before the war. Mm-hmm. and they were trying to reform the states and work on the new legislation, all self-government, this and that. So we went to the university, we went to the local councils, we had many meetings, and on during one of the meetings, I said, listen, in the end of this visit, I said, listen, you've got a serious problem with corruption. If you will not fight it, if you will not stop it, you will never do what you want to do about self-government and legislation.
Who are you saying this to?
I was saying this to the professor on universities, because they were part of the team who was working on the legislation. And the professor said, it's impossible. I said, what is impossible? To stop corruption. I said, okay, so maybe you should start thinking about stopping the corruption. And he said, it's impossible. We cannot start thinking about stopping the corruption, because corruption is everywhere and it will never happen. So mental state of the professor.
Expected.
Mental state of the professor at the university, law professor, was, it's impossible. It cannot be done. So the state of mind in Ukraine, elites, people who are responsible for, it's that it cannot be done. Even war did not stop corruption in Ukraine. And I feel bad about it, because we spend so much money as Poland. You spend so much money as US. And corruption is still there. So I feel like, I know we have to fight Putin. I know we have to help them to fight Putin, to defend. But on the other side, I hear about the cases of corruption every single day. It pisses me off. That's why I'm so confused. I hate Putin. I think he's an evil man. As every ex-KGB agent, he was KGB officer. And I know that he's an evil man, and I know that Russia is a state of mind, and I know that everyone who's attacked by Russia should be supported. But I really don't like what they do with the money. I hate it.
Okay, so interesting when it comes down to that. By the way, internally, what's the word on the streets where you're at? Being in the parliament, being in the EU. And, you know, because you say, well, you know, Zelenskyy, man, they're holding their own. They're doing great. And they're, you know, they're winning. They're doing this. They're doing that. Who's really winning the war, Russia or Ukraine right now?
It's hard to say, because we don't have numbers. If we would judge it politically, not military, politically, I think Russia is losing. Because of what is happening recently. As you know, Ukrainians entered the Russian territory and they are gaining more land, and that's a shock. Everyone was like, okay, this war is going to take 5-6 days. They're going to take over Kiev and that's it. It's done. It didn't happen. So this huge Russian bear was about to take this small Ukraine within a week. And it takes years, and now Ukrainians are entering Russian territory. First time since Second World War, someone is on the Russian territory. So, you know, the image of Putin angry when he was getting the reports from what is happening at the border, it doesn't look good for Putin. What is the real story behind it? What are the casualties? We do not have the... Apparently it's 500,000 on both sides. It's much more on the Ukrainian side. Much more.
It's much more on the Ukrainian side. Got it.
Yeah.
So militarily, Russia's ahead. Yeah. Territory, some of the stories come out politically, maybe Ukraine is ahead because... Yeah. Okay. So on the Putin side, you know, when I talk to somebody who is Jewish and they're part of AIPAC, I know what their motives are to defend what is AIPAC, Jewish, no problem. Yeah. When I talk to somebody who is Muslim and they're pro-Palestine, I'm not surprised if they're going to say, you know, I'm against XYZ. When I talk to somebody who is a atheist, you know, I can see why, you know, Christians, Jesus, maybe you mock them, okay? And when I talk to somebody who is all the positions, when you talk to Putin, you know, Putin's motivations is Soviet Union, USSR, his hero, KGB's, what he did. He's a proud leader of his country, nationalist. He's a full-on nationalist about what Russia stands for. Now watch this. So you promise you're not going to make any advances with Ukraine being part of NATO, and you get involved, and you keep getting closer and closer and closer. Then last year, give or take around June, July, you guys start saying, NATO starts saying, we have to accelerate the process of, no, Biden said we have to possibly consider accelerating process, we can find out who said this, of Ukraine joining NATO. You're trying to get under the skin of the bear for him to say, look, guys, look, if you want to play this, let's play this. Then he goes to Iran, then he gets closer to China, and you're pushing them to get, historically, you don't want Russia and China to get too close. They're getting closer. So you're also playing with fire here. What do you say to people that are saying, look, he's just defending his country?
Yeah, defending in what way? So if only because Ukraine is a neighboring country, it doesn't mean that they cannot decide about themselves. Why Ukraine should resign from, I'm not advocating, I'm just trying to be logical. Why sovereign independent country should decide about their future because they are neighbors with Russia? If they want to be the part of the NATO or European Union, why not? Only because they are neighbors with Russia? Come on, they're not satellite state anymore. The way of thinking, Putin's way of thinking is that he's trying to rebuild Soviet Union, which means Ukraine was part of Soviet Union, Latvia, and many other states, right? Lithuania. So only because Ukraine is next to Russia, it doesn't mean that they will not be able to decide about themselves. Yeah. I do understand your argument that, okay, you shouldn't be doing this because Russia will react. You know, they are free people. They breathe the same way. They eat like we do. They do have the right to decide about themselves.
Yeah, that's the one right here. Last year, July 2023, leaders agreed to expedite Ukraine's NATO membership. So a part of this, you're right. Ukraine can do that. Yeah, go for it. Do what you want to do. But in the behind closed doors, Putin's sitting there saying, listen, guys, we negotiated with you guys, and you guys said you guys weren't going to do this. You keep saying, we never have any intentions. We never have any intentions. And you keep coming further close to me. You want to do that, I have to protect what I got because my job is to defend
in my opinion, this is not the real reason. That is only an excuse. You have to remember that Putin attacked Georgia in 2008. What was the reason to attack Georgian territory? Tanks went in and he killed a lot of Georgians. Every single time when someone is trying to grow, basically, because to be the member of the European Union in many cases, and NATO as a kind of growth, for Ukraine that would be growth in the beginning to be a member of the European Union. So what is the reason for Putin? Why did he attack Georgia, Ossetia? We know what is happening throughout the years. That's only an excuse. I do understand the argument, but they are free nation. And obviously, he attacked Ukraine because he knew that during the war, they will not be able to join NATO because the state in the state of war, the country cannot join NATO. That's the law, obviously. So that's why I think this war will take years. It's not going to end because that is the way to keep Ukraine out of NATO. And obviously for Russia, it is safer not to have Ukraine in NATO because they are neighbors. But
is this the one you're talking about? In 2003, Putin began to consider the possibility of military solution conflict with Georgia after Georgia deported 4 suspected Russian spies in 2006. Russia began a full-scale diplomatic and economic war against Georgia. Was that the motive? What's the story behind the Russian spies, the 4 suspected Russian spies?
So the spies are everywhere. They were in the past. They are going to be in the future. That's normal. Spies, it doesn't matter. The most important thing is that civilians, children were killed. So you cannot use this kind of excuse spies, 6 or whatever. It doesn't. You cannot kill civilians. That was. You see, that's why I'm trying to get into the genocide in my PhD, because genocide is taking place in different places in the world now. And when you kill only because someone is Armenian, Georgian, Ukrainian, or Polish, this is genocide because of someone's origin. And he doesn't need any reason to attack. If you will Google YouTube the attack on Georgia in 2006-8, you will see in 2008, you will see how many women and children were killed in Georgia. That's why Polish President Lech Kaczynski went to Georgia, and he took like 6 presidents with him and stood up against Putin, because he knew that after Georgia is Ukraine, then Baltic states, and then Poland, and after Poland, you never know what might happen.
Tell me you don't love this guy. Tell me you don't love his patriotism on how much he loves his country. Don't you just respect somebody that loves their country as much as this guy does? Well, listen, I love America, and I'm America first. If that's you and you believe the future looks bright, we have a new supply of the best hat we've been selling, the USA hat with the future looks bright on the side. Sport this especially for the rest of the year with everything that's going on. If you're a proud American and you believe the future looks bright, every time we announce this hat, we sell thousands, and then we have to wait 3 months to get a new shipment in. Click on the link below, place your order, sport the gear, USA with Future Looks Bright.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.